Good afternoon, YouTube. Here we have 3 different makes of ratchet spanners. We're going to have a look through the different ones, some pros, cons, features, no features, see what the actual ratcheting mechanisms are like. We have a set from Blue Point, we have a snap-on one, and we have some Halfords Professional. We're going to take a closer look. We're going to have a look at each different type of spanner. We'll probably choose the 13mm, and yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so here we have the set from Blue Point. They go from 8mm all the way up to 19. They have an offset head with reversible pawl on it. Next we have the snap-on. It is a stubby. I only have the one snap-on ratcheting spanner because I have the Blue Point set, and the only real need I've ever had for a ratcheting stubby is in a 13mm. So that is the only one that I have. And we have the Halfords Professional. Now, these are in Imperial, but again, we will mostly be concentrating on the 13mm. This will focus. This set is Imperial. It goes from 5/16 up to 3/4. I'm not sure if they still make them, but they are the cheapest set here. So let's take a closer look at some of them. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the Blue Point ratcheting spanner first. Offset head. Directional selector. All around it feels nice. It's not too sharp around the edges here. Feels relatively solid and got a pretty fine tooth ratcheting mechanism. Now they are Taiwan made, but so far I haven't had any problems with them. I've done quite a lot of work with these, and apart from the head area here being quite bulky, which I suppose is relatively normal for most ratcheting spanners, yeah, I have had no problems with these whatsoever. I bought these because they were about £200 cheaper than the snap-on equivalent. They are a bit shorter. If we go up against even a Blue Point standard spanner, they are slightly shorter. Not by a lot, but they are. And up against, if we do that up against the snap-on one, again slightly shorter, but nothing too disastrous. They are about the same length as the Halfords ones. So yeah, that'll be them. Okay, so we'll now go on to the Halfords. These have a no offset, and there's no reversible on them. So that in some ways can be useful, in other ways not. The Imperial set is the same as the metric set. They do a flex head one, but they are quite big on the head end. Again, the ratchet mechanism is slightly coarser on these, probably only by a few teeth, but it is rougher. It is noticeable, but they are probably a third of the price. So yeah, it's all pros and cons, I suppose. But for what they are, not a bad spanner. I bought the Halfords ones of these in Imperial because I didn't have any Imperial ratcheting spanners, but I don't use them often enough to warrant buying snap-on or Blue Point or even some of the other makes, these were pretty cheap for what they were. I think I bought them on a sale, so yeah, they're again not massively long, but a good average all-round spanner. The Halfords Professional name is actually stamped in, whereas on the Blue Point ones they are etched. So that, again, it doesn't really make any difference to me. Some people prefer etched. I haven't had sort of any. The only sort of one which is starting to wear is the 10mm, because that gets used heavily. The etching is starting to wear off on that one a little bit, which we'll see if it disappears altogether. Okay, on to the last style of spanner that we have here, which is a stubby snap-on ratcheting. Now, in stubby I don't need any other sizes to ratchet. This is the only one that I've ever needed, so it's the only one I've ever bought. Good strong mechanism in this, probably better quality than any of the other ones by feel, and it's the one that's going to have the least stress on it. It's a nice spanner. I cannot justify spending the money to buy a whole set of these, nor can I justify buying a standard length set either in ratcheting in snap-on. Just too much money for what they are. So to sum up, am I happy with the Blue Point? Yes. There's a few things that could possibly be improved, but for the money they've done me absolutely fine. I don't seem to have any problems with these at all, even the larger ones. They've got a good solid switch, don't tend to slip, good offset, very comprehensive, 8 through to 19 without skipping any sizes, which is hard to find these days. The snap-on, if money was no object and I had unlimited funds, yeah, I'd buy a full set of these, even in the full size. Lovely, very nice spanner, but hard to justify for a full set like the Blue Point. They're like 400 odd pounds. It's just too much money for a set of ratchet spanners. Okay, on to the Halfords. Very good set for the money. Ideal for a secondary set like what I've got in Imperial. I would probably not buy them as my main metric set, mostly because of the lack of forward and reverse and the offset. There is no offset at all, totally straight, which is obviously because there's no forward and reverse. So for a secondary set like what I've got for Imperial stuff, it's rare now that I work on anything that old, but when I do, it's really nice to have a good set of ratchet spanners. The ratcheting mechanisms themselves, very good, don't have too much of a problem. I've had one, I believe, slip, which was the 1/2 inch, which has been most heavily used. It did skip on one, it was on a strange angle, and it did slip forwards a few, but nothing too horrendous. So for not an everyday use, lovely spanners. So my recommendation would be good all-rounder, Blue Points. If you got the money, lovely ratcheting spanners, the snap-on, absolutely lovely. But again, £400 for the same set as that, basically, just slightly longer, no. And the Halfords ones, lovely if you're not using them every day, or even if you are using them every day, if you're not a heavy user perhaps. But for me, the biggest turn off is the lack of direction control and offset. So I hope this was useful. Please comment, rate and subscribe.